Good morning, everyone. So Josh, that was a great introduction. If we really want to make a change, and the people here in this room can make a difference, that change has to start with all of you. It has to start with all of us. So today I'm going to talk about how leadership needs to transform, how you have to think differently as a leader in the modern era, both for driving transformation within your organization and for sustainability. All right, there are two major primitives that are really changing the world today. Yeah, these slides are just slightly off. OK. And I'm going to cover a couple things that are pretty apparent to everyone in the room. But it's important to get grounded on the biggest realities that shape how the world operates today. The first of the two primitives that are shaping the world today is just the internet. We all know the internet is incredibly powerful today. Everybody can know everything. I believe one of the CIOs yesterday mentioned nobody should ever say, I don't know about anything today, because you can just Google it. At the very least, you just say, let me Google that, and you have the answers at your fingertips. I never could have started my first or second software companies without the power of search on the internet. But what the internet really provides is this zero friction ability to get to almost everybody on the planet, certainly billions of people on the planet at light speed around the world. And if you look at applications today, like WhatsApp and TikTok, they launch, and within a year, they can approach billions of users on these huge platforms that are available that tap into the internet. That's really a remarkable ability. So there's this zero friction principle of the internet. Now, we all know that's possible, but when it comes to the businesses that we're in, very few businesses are centered around that capability of the internet. They make use of it, they launch apps, but they're not really trying to tap into this zero friction capability of the internet. The second big piece that's changing the world today is what I call compound innovation. So the internet was created, and then right after that, we had the open sourcing of Linux. That all started fairly early in the life cycle of the digital transformation of the world. Around 2007, we had the launch of several major platforms, all within a year or two. Amazon invented the cloud, even though Mark Benioff claims that he did. And then you also had the Android platform. You had the iPhone launching. Git was launched, which allowed open source developers to share their open source code even more than ever. And so these are really massive platforms that facilitate innovation at a scale that nobody had really thought of before. Today, if you want to launch an app, you don't need to have football field rooms of servers and infrastructure and then manage all of that with your own software. You can get all of that by the drip in the cloud. Fast forward another 10 or so years, and you think about the cloud as it is today, and the tech giants, companies like Google and Microsoft with Azure, they invest in the highest paid technologists in the world, the best engineers, all around machine learning programs, deep learning programs, AI, ML. And what they do is they take this tech that's created by the world's top developers, and they make it instantly available to everyone by the drip as a service in their cloud. So you can take top tech from the top companies and the top engineers, and you can just employ it with whatever idea you have for an application. And it's that combination of taking these building blocks and the zero friction principles of the internet that gives so much power to great product ideas. And most companies, even though they think they're digitally transforming their organizations, they think about applications and products, they are not truly designed around these principles. What does it look like if you truly develop around these principles? That's really what's happened to the world's biggest companies over the last couple decades. If you scroll 2 decades ago, the top 5 companies in the world, only one was a technology company. And in combination, they were worth $1.6 trillion. Scroll forward another 10 years, 2 of the top 5 of the S&P 500 are tech companies. And they actually kind of shrank over that time to 1.3 trillion in total. This last decade, the tech companies, which are truly centered around the internet and its capabilities, and they build on all of those compound innovations that I talked about, they've grown massively in revenue scale and market capitalization. You have individual companies like Microsoft and Apple and Google. They're all worth over 1.3 trillion individually today, over 10 trillion in combination. So something really staggering has occurred over the last decade. And it just feels like natural, a normal course of behavior until you look at the data. These are companies that really take full advantage of the internet. And so more than ever today, you can take an idea and turn it into something massive that can change an industry faster than ever before. And so what I think all leaders need to do today is to think of themselves as product leaders. It's not somebody else's job to do. We all have to think of ourselves as product leaders. As a product leader, you have to define the what. What is the application? What is the transformation program that we can define that takes full advantage of what's happening in the world today to make a material change on the future of our business or our industry? There are three aspects to being a product leader, and I call it the product trinity. So if you look at many of the people who have created the world's biggest companies today, who were CEOs of the world's biggest companies at one point in time or another, they all manage three different functions themselves. On a day-to-day basis, they would perform these functions. So they were CTOs, heads of product management, heads of user experience design. What I mean by that, they had VPs of product management, they had CTOs, they had heads of UX, but they were actually making decisions in these three categories on a day-to-day basis for the most important applications that powered their company. Obviously, Steve Jobs defined a lot of what we all carry around in our pockets with the iPhone. Jeff Bezos, he was notorious for micromanaging down to the pixel what the Amazon web app looked like and the app that you have in your phone today to order everything that gets delivered to you from Amazon. These individuals, they day-to-day, they decide the technology that's in their products, the CTO function. They look and care about the user experience of their products. They're defining the specific requirements for the applications and the products that they're shipping that really center around the internet's capabilities. And you might think if you're running a large organization, maybe you have a couple thousand people working for you or tens of thousands of people working for you. I don't have time to pay attention to those details for our applications. But how can the leaders of the world's biggest companies, the most valuable companies in the world, have the time, and you do not have the time? You have the time, you just have to make it a priority. So what I would challenge you to think about is, have you defined the right application, the right transformation program that will define the future of your industry, that will win the future of your industry? Because somebody in your industry is trying to define and execute on exactly that. So let's talk about a couple of the ideas that have shaped the world today and why it's not that hard to come up with these application ideas. So Facebook is a great example. If you join Harvard as a freshman, they give all the freshmen this leather-bound book that we all refer to as the Facebook. So Mark Zuckerberg's idea was very simple. It's just taking this leather-bound book that had the faces of all the students in the freshman class and put it online. And he didn't even have to come up with the idea. He stole it from the Winklevoss twins. Now this is a student in college who's a sophomore, not a trained software developer or engineer. He's just learning computer science. He codes up Facebook in a week or two in his dorm, posts it online, it goes viral. They release it out to a couple more college campuses, it goes viral. So Mark didn't know how to build a company. He didn't know how to raise financing. He didn't know how to engineer a platform that could scale to billions of users. So how did he get from product idea that went viral to what Facebook is today, this company that's completely transformed the world and destroyed democracy all over the planet as well? Well, the way it works is, he launches this app, it goes viral, and then apps and great digital ideas, they have this gravity to them. They pull resources to the application, to the innovation. So immediately the founding CEO of Napster comes and says he wants in. He joins Mark Zuckerberg. He's built a company, a notorious company before, but he knows how to raise financing. He knows how to attract talent. He knows how to run a business. They hired their first outside investor in Peter Thiel, founding CEO who had taken PayPal public. So now they have a real investor who really knows how to scale and operate a company. And they start hiring and building out the team around the concept. He didn't need to know how to run and scale a company. The resources came to him after the idea was launched, after virality was achieved. In your organization, if you find the right program, if it's really compelling, if it's a vision that can gravitate people and resources to you, it will pave the way for everything else. It will help you get the funding. It will help you get the best talent. It will help you scale the team. Two men are standing on a street corner in Paris. This happened to me recently. And they were having a really hard time hailing a cab. That's how the idea of Uber was born. Just a simple problem they spotted immediately, and they solved it with an app that is now a company worth over $100 billion. Although ironically, I was trying to get an Uber in Paris and still having a hard time. So it doesn't work that well, and they still made a very successful company. Two men moved from New York to San Francisco. They're having a hard time paying for rent. There's this huge conference, probably a lot bigger than this, that comes to town. All the hotels are booked up. So they get this bright idea. They buy airbeds and decide to post them online. So if you think about this, it's not like they built an app to begin with. They just posted an airbed online, and people, crazy people out there said, yeah, I'll rent your airbed out in your apartment for X dollars. That's how they proved the MVP for Airbnb, a super low-tech way to prove it out. And yet today, another $100 billion plus tech company. Two fraternity brothers are talking. One says to the other, I really wish this picture I just sent to this girl would disappear from my phone. You probably can imagine what kind of picture that was. Maybe you should stop imagining that. Evan Spiegel jumps up and down. He says, that's $1 million idea. But he was really wrong about that. It was a $100 billion idea. Think about that thin slice of differentiation. This is after Facebook has proliferated around the planet, after they keep copying every social media platform that comes into existence. They were able to take that sliver of differentiation and blow out a $100 billion technology company. That's how powerful and how quickly applications can change the world today. So how do you define the what for your organization? So I'll talk a little bit about my own case and how I came up with the ideas for my companies. And maybe that'll help a little bit as you think about the programs that should be important to you. So one of the advantages I had is I knew absolutely nothing about tech or business. When I grew up in school, I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wasn't somebody who had little businesses on the side. I thought I'd just be a writer. I was an English major, and I taught high school and college to help pay for college. So I had a true beginner's mindset. But a beginner's mindset gives you a major advantage, and it's one you want to bring to the problem of solving for defining the right application program for your business or for your industry. It lets you relook at the world anew, so we don't prejudge everything with what we believe we know. There's only one really great advantage, though, to being a high school teacher. It's that you get your summers off. So I got my summers off, and it was during one of my summers off that I came up with the idea for my first software company. The other thing that's really important, especially if you have no background in tech or no background in developing product, is you have to learn everywhere. I call it omnivorous learning. You have to learn everywhere you possibly can. And obviously, the biggest source is the internet with Yahoo and Google searches. But you learn by networking your way to the smartest people you can find who are in tech or who know how to define products. You're always talking about tech and products with the people within your network. One of the things that I did when I started my first software company, I had to hire a lot of executives in all these functions that I didn't know how personally to run. So what I would do is I would start interviewing, and I'd ask each one, so how do you run this function? Tell me about your framework. What's most important? If you had a 30, 60, 90-day outline, 30, 60, 90-day plan, outline what that would look like. After the first one, I got a pretty good sense of how the function would work. After the third interview, I had a really good sense of what that plan might look like. I would start building what I thought was that function across learning from different interviews. So you can actually just learn through interviews, but it's about learning everywhere that you can. One of the important things about learning is you have to make sure you can get down to the first principles in any field that you're looking at. You'll know you're there when you can create with the concepts, when you can come up with new ideas and you know they will work without having to ask anyone else. I call it eating the grass. But Elon Musk is famous for talking about learning everything down to first principles. So then it's really about thinking big and small, thinking about the world around us, the problems around us, standing on street corners in Paris. And then the small part That's the big part, is thinking about the major trends. The small part is thinking about what is the minimum application, the minimum viable product that I can build or that we can build that takes advantage and solves for these big trends that happen in the world. So when I started my first software company back in 1999, everybody used to back up the same data over and over again onto tapes for enterprise backup. That's just how the entire industry worked. But on the consumer side, TiVo and MP3 players had already shipped. They were taking audio cassettes, VHS cassettes, putting it onto disk, radically up-leveling the user experience. And so I knew at the time that this entire enterprise tape backup world, a $5 billion hardware software industry, had to move to disk over some period of time. And so I launched a company called Avamar, and that's exactly what happened in the world. We sold it to EMC too early, but that's how I came up with the idea for my first software product. I identified a very clear trend that already existed in the consumer space, applied it to the enterprise industry. That's how that industry ended up being shaped over time. I had high conviction over that application, being able to take advantage of that trend. Delphix is my second software company. For Delphix, when we're thinking about how do we shape our products, what defines our products, it really comes down to the one big trend that's happening in the world today. DevOps is the mega trend that is shaping the world today. Everybody needs to innovate faster. All companies are on a race to innovate faster. And DevOps is automating everything in the enterprise application stack. Over the last decade, pretty much everything's been automated, the server and the storage and the networks. You get the code in place very easily. But the data in enterprise applications, that's still really complex. It's what we think of as the last automation frontier. How do I get the data out of my enterprise applications into the environments I need in an automated fashion that facilitates rapid innovation? How do I do that in a way that doesn't create risk for my company? And so that's really the trend that we're operating under. It's being the data company for DevOps. There are three major trends that are creating the high-level requirements for a data company in DevOps. The first is everybody's trying to release software really, really fast. So we recently announced a case study of Dell where they're at millions of CI/CD pipeline runs a month. Millions of innovation releases per month. Just think about that rate. 20 years ago, nobody would have been thinking about millions of releases a month. It's just an outrageous number for companies to try and manage and execute against. And so if you want to be able to innovate at that speed and you want to test your applications before they get released, you need data in all these environments to enable the testing to move at that same rate. So that's really what we help provide, is we drive the data into these environments in an API automated fashion. You can run your tests, prove that the application works or the next release works, and off it goes through these pipeline runs. So that's the first one, is just you have to catch the rate of innovation that is world-class today. The second is that applications are all moving across the multi-cloud. So they used to sit in data centers. Now they've moved into SaaS and into PaaS and IaaS and also on-prem private clouds. So you have to be everywhere that the applications and data are going. And then the last is that there's just more and more risk around data. You have hostile nation states, ransomware gangs, everybody's trying to get at the data. And then you have the good guys. The good guys, the regulators for privacy regulations or industry regulations, they stipulate enormous fines. There's huge risk in data today. And if you're not mindful of the data in your innovation process, bad things can happen. So if you look at the T-Mobile case, their CEO was literally on front page news talking about how they lost 50 million consumers worth of data from their test environments. From their test environments. Companies generally, they lock the front door. They think a lot about production security and access. But then they leave the back doors and windows all open to their development test environments where they have tons of contractors, developers working from home around the world, all with access to data they should not have access to. And so data really facilitates innovation and creates a ton of risk and responsibility for companies. And that's why we've built our DevOps data platform. It's designed to rapidly accelerate innovation for all of our customers around the world while managing data privacy and security so that data can be handled responsibly. And then we also dramatically reduce the cost of the systems that are used for testing these applications. So it's also good for the planet. So let's say you define the right application. Then how do you know if your team, the team that you've assembled, is executing in a world-class fashion? Because maybe another company will come up with the same idea, and you have to win in the market. So what does great execution look like today? Many companies, when we talk to their CIOs and CTOs, they're on a journey from waterfall to agile. They're maybe halfway between agile and DevOps, or they're really still in agile fall, as they like to define it sometimes or call it sometimes. You cannot be satisfied with the wrong objective if what you're trying to do is win in the digital era today. You have to set the right performance target. And today, world-class operations look like millions of CI/CD pipeline runs a month. You have to set the objectives of what is world-class. So how do some of these tech giants end up at world-class productivity? I had an opportunity to have dinner with Satya Nadella, and one of the things he said is any day of the week, he would invest first in productivity over features, even though features are obviously what you end up shipping to your customers. And the reason why is investments in productivity, they help all of the future releases, all of the future features. So how much do companies like Google and Microsoft invest in productivity? They have thousands of engineers just focused on productivity, billions of dollars a year in spending. Productivity, automation, enabling faster innovation, it is a top priority for every organization in the world today. It will help you achieve these world-class rates of innovation, which you will need to continue to win in the market. The last piece, I think, is it's all about finding purpose. It's harder than ever to keep great talent, attract great talent today. So even once you have the right application, you're executing in world-class fashion, ideally you find purpose as well. As Joshua was mentioning, there will be more data created in the next 3 years than in the history of humanity. And if that data consumes the same amount of resources at that level of scale, we will all be in a world of hurt. That's why one of the things that we really care about is really driving down the resource utilization, the cost to the planet of all of the data and application environments that companies use for innovation. One of our customers is a SaaS company, UKG. And when the pandemic hit, they had to respond to thousands of regional regulations. They had to add tons of features into their application. And they needed to test all of these before they released them. And they simply could not do it. They couldn't buy enough servers, stand them up fast enough, set them up fast enough to catch these changes in the world. And so they had to move to ephemeral environments. But what they found, by automatically standing up a test environment, putting the data in with Delphix, testing and then releasing the environment, what they found is they were able to get 20x the number of test runs in the same number of systems. So it was a 20x reduction in the cost to their pocketbook and to the planet. So the future is really these ephemeral test runs. That's one of the goals that we're really trying to achieve with our platform. And our platform helps on the environment, it helps with the planet, but we wanted to do more. So as a company, we launched sustainableIT.org. And this is all about advancing global sustainability by partnering with technology leaders like yourselves. We have a couple mandates here. It's really working with technology leaders to define what are the biggest digital transformation programs that can be run by industry that can facilitate better operations that help the planet. It's about all three pillars of sustainability: environmental, societal, and governance. And we want to build communities that are thinking about how to do this and showcase the best case studies where people have really made a difference. So we hope that you will join us in this. But what I would encourage you to do is to think about yourselves as product leaders, define the what, define the application that can change the future of your industry, set the right goals so that you can continue to win. And then if you can find purpose in that application, in that vision, that's how you really can attract the best talent and retain them. And that's how you win in today's digital era. Thank you.